So I would love to take the rest of the time here, and I want to hear some more stories. Do you have a story from, for example, like a really rough club you played, like a bar fight or so? You have some like good one for us?
Okay, which one?
Yeah, exactly. All of them. I want to hear all of them.
Oh, well, I can tell you about some of the most horrible places I've ever been. One of those was a place called Thief River Falls, Minnesota, 6 miles from the Canadian border, and freezing cold. Drove all the way there, and the sign outside said, Mixed Emotion, Diane Ray, Mixed Emotion Band, direct from Las Vegas. That was a bummer right off the bat. We get in, get set up, played, I think, 4 songs, and was called into the office. They didn't like that kind of music.
What they want?
They wanted country.
They wanted both kinds, country and western.
Country and western, yeah. Speaking of which, that was down in Texas. That's my next story. I actually got it booked into this one club, and we got in the club. I didn't even set up. Walked in there and saw chicken wire, just like the Blues Brothers, and I called my agent. I said, "You get me out of here now." So he got another band to come in there, and we moved on to Las Cruces in New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
But can you imagine what that would have been like? Oh, geez, just like the Blues Brothers, country and western.
Right, yeah. I mean, you would have guessed that the same thing would happen, right? I mean, they would have been pissed that you guys didn't play country, and then it just would have been terrible.
And then there's another time, we just got off the road, and I got a call from a Kansas City agent here saying, would you please go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and play I think it was a Ramada Inn or Holiday Inn. And because their band canceled on them, can you go down there and play? Well, we hadn't even unpacked the trucks or anything yet, so I told everybody, gas up. We're driving 17 hours straight through to Albuquerque. So off we went, get down there, and the sign says, Diane Ray, Mixed Emotion Band, Country and Western. I told them, don't even unpack. We'll check into our rooms. I'll talk to the innkeeper in the morning. Well, I was real honest with the guy. I said, I don't know what that agent told you, but we play top 40, cover tunes, and we do some country. We do a lot of everything. He said, I'll go ahead. It's a 2-week contract. I'll go ahead and try you out for this week and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out everybody liked us so well. They not only kept us a 2-week contract, but they kept us canceled the agent's other band coming in and had us stay another 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow. You never know, do you?
No.
Yeah.
And we were doing all the Stevie Wonder stuff and a few little country songs and whatever, and the crowd this place filled up.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And so that's one of those nice ones.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's my dad. But yeah, that's really fun.
Now, let's get to the gruesome stories. It's snowing. Colorado Springs, Colorado. I get a phone call in the motel at 3 o'clock in the morning. We finished our show. And my drummers informed me that he just blew a hole in the side of the toilet with a bottle rocket. So I advised him to turn the shut-off valve off. And I said, I am not going to be the one going to the innkeeper with this one. Because he's always messing around with bottle rockets and stuff. And, oh, man. So he went to the innkeeper the next day and told the innkeeper that he dropped a bottle of cologne, a big bottle of men's cologne in the toilet, and it broke a hole in the side of the toilet. Actually, I think it was probably more like an M80 in the toilet. So anyway, he paid for the toilet. That was there. Then we went on up to Gillette, Wyoming. And once again, I get a call the next morning after the gig, and I am summoned to the innkeeper's office. It seems that he was shooting off bottle rockets out of the back window of the hotel and nearly hit some guy and his kid coming out of a camper trailer in the parking lot. So I guaranteed that it would not happen again.
Was that like 70s? Or what decade would that have been in?
Oh, yeah, it would be about right.
70s.
Anyway, they get bored on the road, so you gotta hand it to them that they gotta find innovative ways to entertain themselves.
Bottle rockets in the toilet. I mean, I'm bored.
No, it had to be an M8. It'd blow that size of a hole inside of the toilet.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, there's stuff like that happens, though, but you've got to be tolerant enough. I mean, I'd shoot his ass out,
Sure.
But on the other hand, I went back to my room and just laughed for an hour. Because it is funny. So you've got to be tolerant enough to let everybody blow off steam a little bit, too. And I didn't fire him or anything, I said, please. I had to go see the innkeeper. This is not a good thing. And, but that's just kind of some of the silly stuff that happens on the road. They get bored.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had anything even close to something like that. We had a really bad jammer one time that was giving us crap. We ran a jam for a little bit. And he my buddy kind of said pretty forcefully, all right, you're done, kind of, kind of said it kind of like that. And second song, the guy had played, and he's like, okay, you're done, and the guy was not happy about it, and he made a big scene, and that's the worst thing I've ever seen at a jam, for example. But you ever see any real big like bar fights or anything real crazy?
I've seen a few
customers.
Customers getting into it. But most of the time, when you're working mostly hotel gigs, they pretty much have door people that politely escort them out immediately.
Yeah.
So it's not like, some of the rough and tumble clubs. Not that I haven't played a few of those. But even there, they seem to want to protect the band. I've had occasions like that up at Harley's. Well, okay, I admit it. I threw a guy downstairs one time. Well, here he was. He was drunk. I'm up singing. Everybody's playing. He kept working his way around and looking over his shoulder and backing up, and he was going to try to back up into the trumpet player. I was not allowing that. And I kind of pushed him away a couple times. I said, sir, please dance up. He was up dancing, twirling around. But you could tell
he was trying to.
He was trying to back up to fall into the band. It's going to either be the trumpet player, the guitar player, or the drum set, one or the other. And I was maneuvering him to get him out of the way. And so finally, he was drunk enough that I just grabbed him by the back of his breeches and walked him around the hall, and he just accidentally fell down these stairs. But the bartender had only called the police to get rid of him. And what was so funny was I'm standing up the stairs making sure he's not dead.
Sure.
And the police opened the door at the bottom of the staircase right about then, and I said, yep, that's him.
Wow. Wow.
I don't usually lose my temper like that,
sure.
But don't mess with my guys.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and that's one thing when they're just kind of being crazy and falling into the band on accident but it's a whole other thing when you're trying to be like malicious,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I've seen that a couple times in clubs,
Yeah, sure.
To that point where they really want to mess with you. I don't know what their problem is, but other than being drunk.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that I think we should talk more on the upcoming shows when I have people on about the alcohol and drugs thing that happens with musicians, because it's been a problem for sure since at least the 40s. I'm sure the whole time it's been a problem, but we've heard of huge names like in the really early past. I mean, Charlie Parker and them having heroin problems, and then you had and then all through the 60s and 70s with Jim Morrison and a whole bunch of people ODing, and then just the number of people that have been addicted and whatever, and also that
it's really easy for people to do that,
right? And the place that you're in is, you could make an argument accidentally encouraging it, right? I mean, you're encouraging, it's 5th, 6th, and 7th beers for people and stuff, and how much trouble that gets a lot of people.
I've seen many musicians that have. I mean, there's only 3 things that ever actually happen to somebody that's an alcoholic. They either end up in a mental institute, they end up in jail, or they end up dead. Those are the 3 options if they keep doing it without getting any help.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that, and I'm just going to be real honest about it, I don't care if it's out on YouTube or not, is because I'm an alcoholic. And I fortunately got some help. I haven't had a drink now for 30 some years.
Good for you.
And I work with alcoholics and counsel them. I have several people I counsel. And the thing is, I've seen too many musicians that are just marvelous performers. Since he passed away, Jim LaForte, for one thing, that used to come to the jam all the time and actually started the jam with Jay and Rich Van Zandt. That man had a voice, I'm telling you. I have never heard anybody sing like that fella. But I got him going to AA 2 or 3 times, and toward the end of his life. But he just would not quit. And pretty soon his liver went, and they ended up finding him in a bathtub.
Wow.
I mean, you see such talent, and it's here, and it could be great, and then it's gone. And that's what happens. Just those 3 things. And it's not been just him, several other people, many other musicians that I've seen, they're just top quality performers. The more and the more and the more. It's easy to get, well, how can I put this? You drink to feel good, and then you keep drinking to keep from feeling bad.
Right.
Okay?
Your avoidance.
That's
You're
it.
avoiding, yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in that, especially if you're like on the road musicians. I've seen a lot of people do that. So that's where that's at.
Right, yeah. I've heard this one guy said this the other day. He said, why? Because a lot of people don't. It's not really about the drinking. It's always about something else. They're trying to avoid something.
Yes.
And this other guy was kind of joking, what do you hate about reality so much that you want to always not be in it?
Right.
And I was like, wow, is that a quote? And
Yeah.
it's it's this open-ended question for anybody who's a addict of any kind. Why do you need to be out of reality all the
Right.
time? What do you hate about it so much?
Well, that's the same thing with the drugs too,
Yep.
A lot of these people today, you can't just say an alcoholic, because 90% of the time everybody that's drinking is also drugging in this day and age,
Right.
the way the society is today. But, alcohol and drugs are only a symptom of their other real problems.
Right.
And that's what they do,
Right.
and usually it's finances and romances, 90% of the time. Not saying that something else, but that's 90% of it. So
Not wanting to feel the divorce, not wanting to feel your status in the world, maybe
Right.
with money or whatever. You just want to avoid
finances and romances.
the thoughts on that, and that's tough. And that I think gets back to the distraction thing with music, because music is like a healthy, distraction. So at least
Right.
for 3 hours a night, I get to kind of go forget about that.
Right.
And that's another thing that I need to keep remembering too, because at school, we're so into very heady kind of music where we're diving into Beethoven and all the, but I need to keep remembering that a lot of times the reason why they're coming to see me is because this is not insurance. This is not politics. This is not,
It's an escape for a little while so you can have fun. And that's just like the audiences that come to the jams. They are having a good time.
Right.
And that's why they keep coming back.
Right.
And that gives them, maybe they're going through some struggles in their life, but that gives them that one period of time where they can come in and just put it all out of their mind.
Right.
And but the same way with people do with alcohol and drugs.
Sure. Yeah. So, and it seems like, I know a guy said this at Wichita State when I was there, and he was the guitar instructor, and he had a lot of these young kind of, wannabe hippie kids smoking a lot of weed and doing, and they were trying to be the Pink Floyds and the, and the Beatles, whatever, and the guitar player.
You mean they were stars in their own mind?
Yeah, imagine that. But the idea is that they wanted to do the weed and the acid and stuff, and have these great creative moments, and I'm gonna be so much more creative. And he was telling everybody, he's like, and he was telling him, he's like, dude, I get it. I went through that whole phase, and but he told him, he's like, think of a guy in town that's gigging really hard and ask me if they're smoking weed every day, like 4 times a day. He's like, it's not a thing. The guys that are gigging have figured this, in general, have figured this out, that you can't show up to gigs drunk.
Right.
You can't.
That's right.
You got to get it together a little bit. And that was, when he said that, I was like, huh. If I want to do this, that's
had our little trial and error things.
Sure, but he was making, if you're going to be successful, name me a guy that does this. Well, it's not a thing.
Otherwise, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. It will overwhelm you.
Oh, yeah.
So that's amazing.